So it's already 2 minutes after. Should we start the meeting? The first item is from Gaurav. Do we have Gaurav here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. My screen. So I guess it's visible properly. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so about the GitHub import issue, the main blocker I'm facing is that currently it is accepting only one pattern that we can upload from a single URL. So the issue I'm facing with that, how can I get the whole pattern from a single folder? Because the approach that Abhi suggested with this thing, that we can convert the whole file into a single URL raw, so that we can get whole patterns or the wasm files accordingly. So but from the previous update, I think the Utkarsh said that we can get this whole pattern thing is already conversion. The whole conversion thing is already available in the server, so the server will be handling this automatically. So I'm having issue with this thing, the implementation of this thing. So mm, what I should.
Yeah, you are audible. So I couldn't exactly. So the issue is that the server is handling something for you, and actually, I'm not quite sure what exactly. So were you questioning how the user experience should look like, or were you questioning from
No,
implementation point of view?
the implementation point of view about the user experience, the it will be same as for the simple URL upload.
Okay, so are you wondering that how to do recursive imports via the API?
Yeah,
Is that the point of confusion?
yeah, that is the
Okay,
point of.
okay. So let me share link to the doc where all of this is actually documented.
I think this is the doc, I think.
Um, yeah, it is. So in here, if you would you can see the endpoint name is actually slash API slash experimental slash pattern. It used to be slash API slash experimental slash pattern. Now experimental has been removed from it. Other than that, everything is actually as the doc says. That is, if you want to, let's say, if you want to import something from the repository that you are actually pointing to, and that is service hyphen mesh hyphen patterns. That's the org name. So owner would be replaced with service hyphen mesh hyphen patterns. A repository name is service hyphen mesh hyphen patterns. So that is the repository section. And branch is something you will have to also add. That is main IS master. Because we use master branch as default branch. So this is what you will actually set in the post body. And in the path, what you can give is sample slash star star. That would mean that would instruct a message server to go to the samples directory and then recurse everything that is inside it. So it will basically pull in every pattern that is inside it recursively. Doesn't matter how many directories are in there. And save should be set to true, and that will basically instruct that to not only pull those in, also make sure that that message server persisted to the appropriate provider. So
Okay, so the conversion thing will automatically be handled with this API only.
what conversion?
By conversion, I mean that. So previously we were just taking a raw file of this thing to upload, and by conversion I mean that taking the whole folder and converting all the files into a single, so that they can be uploaded one by one automatically with a single import.
Yeah, it's we don't actually do conversion. It is yeah, I mean, even if there are directories, just like it is in samples, all of them will be actually handled. I mean, they will be all pulled in. It's not exact conversion that happens in the server, but yeah, basically everything will be pulled in without any issues.
Okay. Okay, so I'll try with this approach only. So this explicitly thing is not required. to be.
Yeah, pretty much it's not required. Also, the reason you may want to use server's implementation is because Meshi server also supports private repositories if a particular provider supports, and Meshi Cloud. So if someone is logged in using Meshi Cloud, they can even pull in stuff from their private repositories, which definitely this approach would not be able to take care of, because private repositories will not be accessible via just API or without basic token. It won't be accessible. So if someone is logged in with Meshi Cloud and GitHub was their provider, their OAuth provider in Meshi Cloud, in that case, they will be able to basically use their private repositories as well. So that is another reason to use Meshi
Okay.
servers built-in capabilities.
Okay, so I think I'm pretty much clear with this thing. So I'll update this thing today only.
So would you want to discuss the
UI?
UX the UI that you're probably planning for?
Yeah, the UI I think will be the mostly the same as the URL uploader with this thing only. So because we are just having one link from the repository and directly importing. So do we need anything else? Like I think I remember you said having a branch something, check mark for branch.
Yeah, so let me propose, and probably someone can improve on it or maybe comment on it. So what I was proposing was that we accept the repository name and the org name, probably in the same input box or something. The reason I am suggesting not to take in URL is because someone can just try to copy and paste a URL, and that may or may not work. That may or may not work directly. The reason being that we expect the last section of the URL to be the branch name. If it is not, then we will actually assume it's main. The branch name is main, and that's not even going to work out with our own repositories because the branch name is master. So yeah, that is the reason I was suggesting not to directly probably take in the URL, because someone can definitely get confused. If like the developers who are developing it get confused when they don't see the spec. So how, like, probably we cannot expect the others to basically know by default. So I think what we can do is we can take in the repository name along with the organization or the username, and we can also take in branch, maybe in another input box or something, and then we can take in the directory. We can take in which directory you want to from which directory you want to pull in, and probably a checkbox for recursion, like to recurse. That is, do you want Meshi servers to recurse? The default behavior is not to recurse. So probably the checkbox it's unchecked. When someone checks it,
Then it will automatically
yeah.
recurse.
So in terms of implementation, what will happen is that star would be added. So let's say someone typed in samples, that is the directory I want to pull in from, and then when someone do the check, you actually add slash star. That will instruct Meshi server to do the recursion. So basically, just adding some quoting on top of API, because API is not like the most user friendly thing. Yeah.
Okay, so rather than having an input of the direct repository, we can have it from the directory or the branch.
Yep.
Okay.
In case someone has suggestions, probably like if you have any suggestion on this particular UI.
Well, I missed the UI piece of it, or the UI aspect of the consideration, but did follow the notion that, like, even in the code that you were sharing a moment ago, Gaurav, that maybe it was intentionally, I don't know, maybe you were just giving examples of what a URL might look like, but in the code that you were showing, not this, but in VS Code, maybe this is pseudocode or something, but yeah, we would never hard code the owner repo and branch. And I'm assuming that's just like filler code until you get to this. So on line 19 in the draft, yeah, this, actually, I'll wait for you to confirm that this was like, So yeah, when I was saying that, I felt like it was one of those comments where it was like, oh, you didn't capitalize such and such. And it's like, yeah, that's because I'm only like 10% into my work. And so comments like that aren't very helpful. In this case, since you're not saying that, I feel like this is a very helpful comment. 19 needs to be completely variabilized. Every single thing in there, the protocol, the domain name, the owner, the repo, the branch, the whole thing.
Okay.
We don't want to have, while we might have special code handling interactions with github.com specifically, that would be through a different protocol, and it depends on what protocol they're authenticating with, or that they have authenticated with. They still might, like for now, like just ignore that other thing that I just said, but just variabilize everything that is within here. Yeah, there's a number of other software applications that you might use that are out there that walk people through entering in their GitHub repo name, their org and repo name, and which is probably too complex for what you're looking to do. Like, yeah, you need to be able to accept and validate in the case of github.com, we can validate the URL pretty specifically down to the owner, repo, branch type stuff. So yeah. The silence makes me think that that you won't be successful because you don't quite get what.
Like I'm not quite getting the proper approach for this thing, but
okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so probably I mean, I'm not sure if I explained it properly or not, but in case so one point of confusion could be that how the post body should be constructed. In that case, URL is just github.com/ so owner would be replaced with the owner. It's variables. So let's take the example of samples. It would be service-mesh-patterns. Repository would be service-mesh-patterns. Branch would be something coming from probably another input box where they are saying master or main or XYZ, anything, or custom branch probably. And then you will actually append this particular thing, the branch that they have just entered. And in the path, again, there could be an input box where you are asking that, okay, which path? Probably we will have to present an input box rather than a select box, because right now we, at least right now, Mystery Server doesn't actually provides you the current, unless until it's actually traversing, it doesn't provide you beforehand what's the structure of it is. So you will have to probably give an input box. From that input box, you will actually get the path. That is the second attribute in the request body. And the third attribute is save. If someone is importing, we can probably assume that save is true. So that is something you don't have to actually ask the user for. So that will be always save : true. So that is how the post body is supposed to be constructed.
Okay. Yeah, the third one will be, I think, handled by the user logged in provider. No?
What provider?
The third one you said that save will be true. So I think
yeah, actually, I was pointing. So if you would see second 2A, the request in the implementation section, the second point, that is request body may look like following. In that, you can just probably look at the first example, that is 2A. In there are three attributes: URL, path, and save. The URL is something that you will actually ask for directly, that is what the org name is and what repository name is, and you will also ask what the branch name is. That will actually construct the URL. That is the first attribute. The second attribute is path. That is you would ask what directory you want to import from, and probably a checkbox as well. If someone clicks on checkbox, that basically means you have to append ** as well. If you have used glob patterns, it is the exact same glob pattern. Yeah, it's a glob pattern. So when someone clicks on, basically does the checkbox thing, that is yes, recurse, yes, grab everything from the directories, then you would actually add /** as well. And the third attribute is something you don't have to ask the user for, because if they are importing, you can actually expect that they do want to save it. The save can be true. This API is actually used at multiple places for conversions as well. That is why the save attribute is there. So you can probably skip that. If you skip it, it is meant that you want to save it.
Okay.
So that is how basically you construct a post body. A single the 2A example is what you need to get the GitHub import working. You don't have to probably look into other things. The provider is something that will again be taken care by the mystery server. It will take care of, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think this clears pretty much of my issue.
Okay, we should probably get Gaurav. We should probably get you a partner. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. A big
Nice.
yes.
Okay. Oh, cool. Well, there's I don't know if the particular person on the call can kind of feel like they sort of feel their spidey senses going off. They kind of feel like I'm about to say their name. Just kind of waiting for it. Sort of. This person might have just gotten done with their exams and be looking for something to do. I don't know. Anyway, Meghana and Gaurav, you guys have worked on a couple of things close together in the past. I don't know who wrote this spec, but it looks fairly well written. And the nice thing about this particular focus is that, well, it's kind of related to what we're doing with like writing code and checking in code and stuff. Is it's interacting with these source code repository systems. And so, yeah, kind of a neat thing to do. It might be, I don't know, Meghana, if you have a look as well, if you guys have more questions, that's totally fine. We, like in terms of UX, for the most part, we're just going for something pretty simple at the moment, because we're not trying to provide a highly curated, like that one experience that we talked about a long time ago about if they're using OAuth and Mesh Server has the permission to go behind the scenes and like look at the users, all the users' repos and all their files. And we will get there eventually. This one is the much more simple, like what's the direct URL to the thing that you're trying to import. And so, yeah, where it gets a little more complex here is what Utkarsh was representing, is that if they don't point to a specific file, they might just point to a directory. And in this case, that's valid input that behind the scenes Mesh Server would say, okay, fine, this is a directory. And it will look through each of the files to see if they are appropriate fit for a file to import. And so one thing that, again, this is things that can be built upon later, but just as user experience, when someone, maybe they enter in the location of a directory and they click import, or they might actually click like scan or traverse or some other action, because what might be nice is if they point to a directory, there's 100 files in the directory, 90 of them are not filters, but 10 of them are, and only 6 of them they actually want to import. Again, like it might be nice. This is a nice to have that, oh, what we do is we show them a confirmation dialog that says, well, out of the 100 files, we found 10. Here's the 10. Check, 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 check. All 10 are checked. Import, or give them an opportunity to uncheck the 4 that they didn't want, leave just those 6, and then like we won't have to make it very complex. If we can't, if we don't really get there now, fine. Then we'll just try to import all 10. I think there's logic that is either currently in Mesh Server or kind of on its way to being built to avoid kind of duplicative. Like if they did that same import like 5 times, they imported 10, 10 filters 5 times. They have like 10 filters duplicating. They have 50 filters duplicating themselves. And I think Meshry server is going to try to handle some of that, but some amount of asking the user is ultimately desirable. Sometimes users will say, oh yeah, I would like to have, while you think this is a duplicate, it's not. I made a change. And so I do want you to, they want to tell Meshry to import it again. Anyway, look, like I'm making it more complex. Like it's a complex thing. The behind, if you want to get it all right and stuff, but we don't want to get it all right. We just want to be able to import and import successfully. So we want to validate some of the input that they're given. I don't think I should talk on this.
Just to be clear about what needs to be done. So we just like a model or something will open up and we'll ask for a URL, right? And what else? We'll be asking about the path to like the directory 1/directory 2 that will be asked, and we'll ask if it's recursive or not. And then if he checks it, then we are going to add that 2 stars there, and then like basically create a post request with that. Is that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, pretty much. Although I was pretty much exactly that. Although I was suggesting that instead of taking the URL directly, we can just take an owner and repository, because if someone is doing GitHub import, that is implicit. And the reason probably not taking the URL is because someone can definitely get confused. They might think that, okay, I can copy anything. So let's say they are they are looking at a YAML and they think that, okay, I can just copy this YAML, this path. And if I would paste, probably Meshry is going to import it. It's not, it's going to get confused because this is the structure. Like the first thing has to be owner, second thing has to be repository, third thing has to be branch. And that is not how GitHub URLs are actually constructed. So they can definitely get confused. They can try to paste it in, it won't work. So probably you would want to accept only owner, repository, and branch, and can construct this thing, the first attribute, that is the URL attribute, and the rest is exactly what you said.
Okay. So we need to keep some text fields there for owner and repository and branch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
So any more comments on this? Assuming none, let's move on to the next item. Before we move on to the next item, tell me if I'm wrong. Is Charles joining us for the first time, or am I completely mistaken?
Yes, I'm joining for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. If you won't mind, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Charles. I've been on this community for a while, but I've been idle. But I thought to just join today's meeting and try and catch up with what has been done. Yeah.
Hi, Charles.
So you could also do the same as.
Let's move on to the next item. Do we have Mario here? Yeah, we do. So Mario, would you like to talk about the draft here that you have actually created? And I hope I'm unmuted. Yes, I am.
Yeah, sure. Hi all.
Yeah, hi.
Yes, so about this draft PR, I made some progress on adding a test code for the uploading a file for the configuration route, so specifically for the filters in this case. So you can go at the files change if you want to. So basically, oh yeah, I did some change, like NVM file. I tried to do NVM use, so the version was different. But anyway, mainly it's the focus should be on. You go down to the file where it says the spec file, I did add some data CY attributes to locate some elements. Oh, there you see that's the. If you go up a bit, that's the file I'm using for to upload filter. I found that in the I think it's the Watson filters repo, and the test is the one over here. So it's an integration test. So I don't know. I did add some simple tests for. I saw there were like some similar functionality, like some testing on the UI itself. Maybe that's not needed at that point, like the ones above. But basically, it's this test for the post request. So it intercepted. It means it's we're spying on it. So it sends correct post API filter request. So once we spy it, we just take a look at the body, that it has the proper structure, and that also that the content is as per what is expected. So we're using a lot of looks like some promises, but it's some then command from Cypress, but it's basically very similar. And well, yeah, that's it. I'm not sure if the safe attribute is from the request body is actually needed. I wouldn't know if that's some implementation detail that might not be relevant, but at least I did like a very gray box testing. I didn't take such a close look at the backend code, but looking at the request and the components, well, this is what I came up with. And the actual upload, if we look at line number 44, this attach file method, this is coming from the last one. Yeah, this is coming from Cypress file upload. So this is a package that helps simplify this. But I did take a look at the internal code of that, and this is basically sending a change event directly at the button. So at the input, sorry. So to me, it's like we're doing something that the browser already like does when the user clicks and selects a file. So I don't see it's a big issue. And yeah, we're passing, the file path. So and the content seems to match. So I don't know if there's any comments or questions about this. Does it look good? Should we remove the text for the table title and the page title? Once in line 14 and 19. I mean, you could maybe I can share the. Oh yeah, the link to the PR is already in the CI Slack channel, so anyone can go and take a look.
Avi, what feedback do you have? Is this something you'll take a look at?
Yeah, I actually did look at it, and it's pretty straight and good right now. So we need to add some more things, like upload file is already there. So it was one of the most complex thing which needs new file upload to be done, right? So other than that, remaining methods will be much easier, I guess. One more thing that I just notice is that whenever we successfully post a request, we get a response as in the snack bar, that pattern successfully uploaded. So a snack bar is, yeah, so a snack bar is
cool.
Visible, so we can also
displayed. Okay, should it go in this same test in the one in line 32 like this like in the post request? Like I mean, I'm just wondering what triggers that snack bar to appear? Like is it some internal,
So
like I like to have
I
something that I
guess.
can go to
Mhm.
trigger that check, or to wait for something that needs to happen before that appears.
So I think once the file is uploaded, and when we get the successful like 201 response from the server, the snack bar is visible, like it just comes to the screen, or maybe it is
Hmm.
having timeout. I will just confirm it right
Yeah,
now.
actually, right now,
Mhm.
it comes in when, as Abhishek was saying, that is when you actually try to upload this particular file or anything. As soon as the server responds back, if the response is non 500 or something, then a snack bar comes in of success, and if it is an error message, then actually a error message comes in. So basically, what Abhishek was saying.
Of course, yeah, that sounds great. I think that's very good input. I'll take a look at that. I hadn't paid so much attention, maybe because the test runs very fast, and Cypress Runner, like you can like go back in time by hovering over certain test steps. Uh, but maybe I'm missing something because I didn't see the snack bar, but it should be there. I'll just take a look. And something else. So I was thinking into, so all of this input, I'll work on that for this test. And I was hoping we could like create a template for these steps, and then other tests could reuse it. But I'm a bit afraid that since every component has its own like code, like there might be differences. I was just wondering if like the way that the upload is handled for all of the three pages or components, like is that the way it's gonna, like is there a lot of work remaining, or is there like is there any plans of refactoring the code to reuse the same function, like yeah, to reuse the same utility for this, or like is there any differences that wouldn't allow that? Or I'm just thinking that like I wouldn't be able to write a template test code for this, like for all of the other scenarios, if there's big difference, like does anyone know if this kind of code would work for the other, like let's say the applications, the patterns? Is there anything that might change a lot, like for example the structure of the request that is sent? Maybe I can take a look, compare it, but maybe if there's any like feedback on that, like don't do that, maybe someone knows that wouldn't work. It might help me like save some effort, but if not, I'll just take a look.
Yeah, actually, so just I mean, just what I know. I think, or the actually the tests that you have here would work pretty much. Basically, the test can almost remain same for application and patterns. Um, for patterns and application, the test would, at least right now, the test would look pretty much similar, because the files that they accept are also just YAML. And at least if we are just talking about the upload file test, in that case, it accepts
Mhm.
YAML and only one YAML, so exact same. However, for filters, right now we accept WASM. Now, this is actually where things may start to get diverged, even right now. And that is, for filters, we accept WASM, and for patterns, we accept YAML. For application, we accept YAML. And in future, for filters, we may accept a YAML along with a binary. That is not something that is either documented or has been heavily discussed, because there were some ideas in community that what we would want is the ability to upload a binary as well as some default configurations. So just like I was demoing the basic authentication pattern, in that we had a binary, and we also had a basic pattern, a lot of which could be basically was just template. So in that case, it could be just basically we could just save it alongside binary. So right now, I think that the behavior for at least uploading and all, they are pretty much similar. The only point of divergence right now is the type of content that is being uploaded, and that for patterns and applications again same even today, and it differs for filters. That turns out to be WASM file, that is a binary. Other than that, everything is exactly same. And I'm not sure if they would diverge a lot in future, but the reason actually we have like components for everything, as you were pointing out, is because a lot of actually we use MUI data tables. So the data table, we actually reuse that component, but construct table for every component. And second reason is I think the upload function is also being repeated. So as you were pointing out, that maybe some scope of refactoring is there. So I also think that there is some scope of refactoring there. So, and that is actually the major reason we have huge components for each of them. The reason is not quite divergence or differences in them. It may diverge in future, but and not at least what I can think of. I don't think a lot of divergence would be there. Like I think that there would be still tables. I think that the table would still look same. For uploading, I think the content may differ, as I was pointing out earlier, but the rest will actually remain same. So just to conclude, I said a lot. Just to conclude, I think that these tests, as you were saying, that can be templated out. I think a lot of things can be converted to template. A lot of things because are going to remain same throughout in all the three sections, that is filters, application, and patterns. So I hope that clears out some of the question that you were.
Sure. Sounds good. Just one more question. And what about the name of the file once it's uploaded, at least for the filters? I noticed that every file being uploaded for these filters is test filter. Will that change in the future? And is this and is this the same for all of the other kinds of uploads? Like, would it be test patterns, test application, or is the user expected, like,
Yeah,
will the user be able to define
yeah,
that
actually,
name?
For patterns, something I can immediately tell, and Naveen would be the guy for application filters because he actually implemented those endpoints. But for patterns, what happens is that because it's a YAML, and patterns basically. If you're writing a pattern, it is mandated that you provide a name. There should be a name entity in that particular YAML, and that is what is picked. So if you have a YAML with name entity called XYZ, that is what the file name would turn out to be. So when the response would come in, that is the file name. What do we save? That is the file name we save from. For filters, I think test filter is being chose automatically. Basically, that's the name that Navido actually chose, was because binaries don't have that attribute. So there is nothing can extract from it. So that is why probably that name is coming from. And for application, probably Navido can tell if we are actually extracting it on the fly or we are falling back to a default.
Well, so just by the way, this might be my confusion, but just to be clear, like that introspection of the file and the identification of like a nice display name, I think is what I understand that Utkarsh is describing. It's like in the UI, in Meshri UI, in the table, there's a nicely formatted, human-friendly display name that you can show for a pattern. Like a pattern is a great example where one of the first lines inside of the YAML file for a pattern is this, hopefully a human-friendly display name is written there. It's a required element is to have a name. Whether or not it's nicely spaced and capitalized and all that is up to the person that wrote the pattern. Introspecting that pattern, grabbing that name and putting it into the Meshri UI table, that's great, but is a separate consideration from the actual file name itself. Like, is there any reason that the file name of any of these three artifacts, application, pattern, filter, that the original file name as it's presented, either as it's uploaded from the user's local file system or as it's imported from GitHub or some other URL, is there any reason why that file name would be any that we would So we wouldn't change that, or my suggestion is that we wouldn't change that file name on disk at all, but just leave it the same as the original. So if we're using test something, that's just, I would expect that that's just quick filler stuff. We should not be renaming every filter that's uploaded to test filter. And now I see that the uploaded filter name on line 34, great. There's a distinction between the filter name and the file, the filter file name. So just for clarification.
I'd like to add that in this kind of test, we're even mocking the response. So it really, it's not like that valuable for us to take a look at that, because whatever we add in the fixtures folder, like whatever is the content that, let's say like that the subsequent GET request received after the upload, like that's even being marked. So it's kind of like pretty irrelevant at this level of test. But this will be kind of reused for the end-to-end test that will actually check for a real response from the backend. And it'd be good to have like some level of like congruence between like what's happening over here and what we'll test at an end-to-end test. So that's why I'm asking, because that's the response I saw before mocking that. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. I think we're all on the same page, but just for clarification from something that Navendu said, is that Navendu, when you said extracting from file, were you talking about filters?
Applications.
Okay. Okay. Where?
I think we expected those to be pattern files as well. So similar to pattern.
No, that's otherwise there's no difference between a pattern and an application.
There's a filter above, like if you scroll up, please, like there, I think it's kind of different like than a pattern, because this is an envoy filter, right? So there's no, or maybe there's a name, but it's in somewhere else. You see there's a name at line number 10, I believe. No, yes, number 10. So that's the name of the filter. And there's another like listener, but that's name main. I don't know. Like, should we take the name from somewhere over there? Maybe this is input for like additional work in the filters.
So
Yeah.
by the way, like on the mock or the testing, like trying to verify the display name might be a bit of a red herring for us. This might make the test too fragile. Like but as a matter of making sure that the functionality is correct in this area, like the fact that we're able to introspect a pattern and retrieve a potentially nice display name, the fact that we're able to do that is a couple of, one is because it's YAML, it's text, so you can actually go into the file. Two, because we defined what the definition of that file is. You could do that for Kubernetes because it is defined what that is supposed to be, and it is text that you can read in, but it's not really all that advantageous. Like you can just, when someone imports any of these artifacts, we can prompt them for a human readable display name that they might like to provide. We should also auto suggest what the default is, which would be, in the case of filters and in the case of applications, it would just be the file name. So the display name, the automatic suggestion would be the file name itself, allowing people to override that with something else. In the case of a pattern, the automatic suggestion would be the the name of the pattern that we would have pulled out from the YAML itself, which I don't think has an effect on the test necessarily, unless there's an intermediate step in terms of importing. I don't know. Are we?
So
Or
for
like
now,
ultimate-
maybe I can take out like any step that looks for the name of the uploaded file, like 'cause this is against like the UI.
yeah.
So for
Like
now, I
ultimately,
can just
like
comment that out.
post 1.0, that might be the right thing to do. Pre 1.0, we're in treacherous waters because like it's subject to subject to change.
Subject to change. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, I wouldn't like to leave anything here that would break easily, especially because there's changes. So I can comment that out and just leave it to do that, after 1.0 or something. And this should be like addressed again or something else, something like that. Okay. And I just last question: is this something like is the objective basic objective of I know there's like an Excel file with scenarios, um, but at least that like can we bring that up quickly? Like I just want to make sure like mm, I don't think that they're that clear like what to test at this level because they're like oriented at like an end-to-end ish, and this is an integration test, so not sure. Maybe the Excel file we could refine it a bit, like on those scenarios, or maybe it's just my confusion. I'm not understanding like certain words that are being used. I recall it's like oh the upload works fine, but I'm not sure to be honest. Like talking about the test scenarios, like a spreadsheet. Because I read a chat. Yeah,
Yes.
the spreadsheet that comes with the scenarios for testing.
Okay. It's hard for the is this where the Excel sheet has been,
I mean, it's already there, like the test strategy. There's a spreadsheet. I didn't create it. It's like in the community drive.
okay.
I have linked it.
The- oh yeah, it's in the chat.
So
So it should be like, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so I think so I'm not sure if this scenario is being covered or not. I think one scenario that would be quite one test case that would be quite relevant to capture would be so in patterns we have that deploy button, that play button. If someone has noticed, that play button actually does a lot of things. So probably we would also want to test that out. That is when you click the play button, has it did it return 200 up 200 series response, or did it just return something else? Probably that would be a good test, because if it is so if it's an integration test, you can assume that if the response was anything other than 200, then it was a success, because mystery server usually basically the status codes are most of the time pretty accurate. So basically that's one of the test scenarios that we would probably want to cover, and that may or may not be same in all of them. That is, a filter may have a different behavior while pattern may have different one. So right now, if you would click on that play button in the same table, if you click on play button, it will actually deploy the pattern, deploy the YAML, and you may or may not get error depending upon multiple scenarios or multiple cases. But in ideal case, if Meshri as a complete deployment is running, that is, if all of the adapters are present, if Meshri server is present and the YAML was right, in that case, it should actually return in 200. It should return a success message. Even if nothing actually happened, because we detected that nothing needs to be actually changed. So yeah, basically that's a scenario probably we should test. That is the deployment working or not, along with the upload.
Yeah, sure. It's not here yet. I haven't gotten there yet. So, but it's yeah, as you say, we're going to mark this kind of test. We're going to mark like every response from the backend and just make sure that the UI behaves correctly. And of course, these tests will, like kind of tests, will also be beneficial in the end-to-end. There's another end-to-end folder, and I'd be adding some like similar tests, but without the mocks, and just making sure that the backend also sends these kind of requests, right? Responses, sorry. So it might change, like because right here we're not introspecting like or spying on the responses because we're controlling them. But once the end-to-end tests are worked on, like I feel that's like it might be part of a different ticket, different issue, because like the issue is very straightforward to integration test. But I don't know. We could take a look like what's the scope of these. Because they're pretty like closely related, it's just like a different test setup, but it's I feel like it's a lot of work, but at least the integration once they're done, they'll be a good starting point for the end-to-end ones, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. It's like everything's happening at the same time. So about the scenarios, can we just take a look at them? Like just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Like I don't see them here. Should be in the somewhere over here. I think it's line 100. I don't know what. Like should be like way down. Okay, so show an error. Okay, I need to look for the errors. Like okay, I'll take a look like at an invalid response. But how can I trigger an invalid response? Like in an actual measure installed, like an actual like the real app. How would I trigger an invalid response? Like in the expected outcome, I see it's show an error if the pattern file is invalid. I think we need to expand that definition, but I don't. This takes a lot of time, so maybe we can take it offline. Like, but if that could be added to the issue, that'd be very helpful. No.
Okay. Yeah. Also, actually, so for this, the endpoint will return a non-200 response if it doesn't validate the entire
Like
pattern file. Sorry. Yeah.
Like a 400.
Yeah. Actually, it doesn't returns 400. I think it returns. Yeah, it returns 400, 401. I think that's what it returns if the pattern file is invalid. It doesn't do the complete.
That? Like, sorry, just a question. What if I just enter like gibberish text, and with the backend, like would that trigger like some like let's say an invalid YAML, like syntactically invalid YAML? Would that trigger like that kind of response?
Yeah, but if you so the pattern file actually looks like this. A pattern file is going to look roughly like this. That is, you have a name field and then you have services field, and these are things defined. What it looks for is, does this have a name field and does this have services? That's it. It doesn't do any further validation, because that is part of dry running. That is, it tries to create execution plan and those kind of things. So so if the endpoint is running 401, that basically means that the YAML that we entered, that wasn't quite fitting the structure of pattern. It doesn't goes any deeper than that. So that is actually.
What about a filter? What about a filter? I think that's where the story changes a bit, right?
Yep. So
it's same syntax.
Yeah. So for filters.
What about an extra space or tab? Would that also trigger?
So right now,
like the keywords are correct.
Yeah, I think Naveen, you can correct me, but I think if you upload, if you are actually uploading a filter, it is going to be accepted. It's not going to error out. So I think this expected outcome is for patterns, because it's not a blob, a binary large object. It's not a blob. So we can actually verify if it's correct or not. I mean, if it's fitting a certain template or not. But I think for filters, we just accept anything. I hope. Am I correct, Navidu?
Yeah, I
I'm
think so.
using a
Like
YAML.
but yeah, we expect the binary file, so it should take in anything.
Okay, so then it's a looser um, validation for the filters, even though they're YAML, correct?
I'm not sure about the user validation. Like I haven't looked into it in some time.
Okay. Sure. I'll just explore a bit on that, like trying to get a failure, and then if not, then it would just be for patterns and apps. So I think it's clear. Thanks.
So I think, does anyone have any further comments or any suggestions regarding the PR, Mario's draft PR? Nope. We are almost on time. So previous week, we had a question, is what supported in Envoy? And Ashish mentioned it's not, and it's right. WebAssembly text by default is not supported. You have to convert it into WASM if you want to drop it into Envoy. Istio or any data plane does not do what to WASM conversion. What if someone is wondering what it is? It's WebAssembly text. That is, if someone has written x86 assembly or any assembly, pretty much similar is WebAssembly text, and that is basically CPU independent assembly that complies to WebAssembly specification. Obviously, you can write that text and you can compile it into WASM if you want to, and then you can drop it into Envoy. By default, it's not. So Ashish was correct. So I think that we are at end of time, as well as our agendas for today. Pretty good time to wind up the call. So it was a good call. We were short on agendas, but that's pretty much fine. Probably we'll have far more agendas in the next meeting. Let's meet tomorrow in our next meeting. Okay. Bye guys. Bye folks.
Bye everyone.
Wow, thanks, Ukarsh. Thanks, Mario. Bye.